Good evening and welcome back to Driver's Ed for today's date, July 6th. If you take a look at your outline, we are going to be covering vision, communication, and turning. So today is going to be pretty heavy on note taking. So please make sure that you have something to write with and something to write on. So we're going to just wait a few minutes. I know this is the week of the 4th of July. Hopefully everybody had a safe and enjoyable 4th. Some of you are in various parts of the state, but I heard that you are trying to get Wi-Fi connection so you can jump on. Look at everybody jumping on. Good deal. We've started driving, which is nice. So some of you have been behind the wheel a few times, which is good. I will continue to have some times posted, or I'll mention times that you can drive later in the week. I know tomorrow and Wednesday is pretty booked up. Thursday's almost. Friday and Saturday is pretty wide open. That I could probably slot some of you that have not had a chance to get behind the wheel. So we'll do that. Please remind me if the sound begins to create an echo. If you can't hear me or if the video is lagging, that's the only way that we're going to make this as informational as possible with what we have available to us. I only have a few videos for tonight's class, so it's really just you, me, and the topic at hand. So hopefully everybody did their reading. You are supposed to read chapter 6 and 7 in responsible driving. Remember, the questions are what due at the end of the chapter, so please put them in a text message to me. So whether take a picture of it or send it by email if you want, I guess. But text messages allows me to keep it all in your chronological format of this class. So your contact in my iPhone is really your file, and that's what we're going to keep track of, what you've done and what you haven't done. Let's see if there's anything else that I need to mention before we go. No news from the state about testing. We talked about it last week. As far as I know, testing is still happening in Concord and Nashua. I do not know of any road tests being done at Dover at this point. They will do their eye test and written test there, but they are not doing a road test at this point. People are still waiting for their time, meaning that they're contacting the DMV through the online information. And I did go on this weekend to take a look at what they have. They want you to wait till you get your green certificate from me, and then to go online, and they have you answer some questions, leave a phone number, and then they get back to you. So it's not something that you would typically think that you go online, ask for a date, and then they correspond saying, yes, we can do it, or no, we can't do it. It's really totally up to them how they schedule it. So let's get right into tonight's topic. We're going to start off with vehicle balance. So we're going to talk a little bit about the movement and placement of a vehicle. Understanding the science of movement and vehicle placement on the roadway will create a safer drive for everyone. A lot of people ask when we start driving, what do we do the first time out? What's part of the 10 hours that you provide here at Driver's Ed? Well, really the first time out driving is you getting used to the vehicle, and it gives me a chance to see what type of driver you are. Even though I may not be talking to you, I am basically critiquing what I think your knowledge base about driving is. Now, you need to remember that when you go for your driving test, you're trying to impress an individual, the state examiner, that you have basic knowledge and understanding of traffic law and vehicle movement. It's not how you feel the vehicle should be moving. It's how they think the vehicle should be moving. It's really important for you to understand that you're trying to impress them. Drive the way that you think they want you to drive. I mean, you want to be a safe driver. You want to show that you have some technique, that you're just not, just moving the vehicle wherever it's going on the road, that you're controlling the car. You're making it do what you want it to do. I'm going to bump out of this for just a second to get back into, I want to show you something, is that when you're grabbing a steering wheel and you're making a turn, you're holding on to something. So when you make a turn too quickly, you're staying upright. If you're a passenger, okay, next to the driver, a passenger in the back, if someone's driving too fast, everybody is going to start moving from side to side when you make a turn. Or if you stop real quick, they'll do one of these. Or if you accelerate, they will go back. So that's showing that you do not have control of the vehicle. So the three terms that I want you to write down that you need to know, one of these will be on your midterm. Pitch, roll, and yaw. I think most of you understand the first two, pitch and roll. Pitch is when the vehicle's weight shifts either forward or backwards. It means that the car has come to a resting stop. Now, I know in some driving schools, they make you actually count to 3 before you can move away from a stop sign. I'm not like that. All I want to know is that the vehicle is pitched and that you've looked left and right and back to the left. Once that has happened, if you think the opening in traffic is large enough to pull out, I'm going to let you pull out. I want to see what your judgment, what your reasoning is for doing what you're doing. I know that you'll do what I ask you to do. I want to see eventually, now I probably will tell you the first couple times out, 3-4 times out driving, but once we hit the halfway mark, it's really totally up to you. I want to see what your decision making is. Roll is what we were just talking about, when the vehicle shifts to one side or to the other. And it's usually speed related. Although roll could have something to do with the way the road was made. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. The last term is yaw. This is when the tires of the back of the vehicle lift up on one side and then it shifts down on the opposite side. And I've got a little thing that you'll a slide that will explain that. So here's pitch. So what I want you to write down with pitch. Pitch is a sign of inexperience, either inexperience with a car or inexperience with driving in general. Pitch could also be a sign that you're a very aggressive driver, that you're really trying to get quick off the stop sign, quick off the traffic light. Could be a sign of road rage, where you're following too closely and then you have to brake more than normal. And then lastly, like I said, it's just a sign that you're not just familiar with the vehicle. So please bring a vehicle that you're used to your driving test. Because if you're making it pitch more than it should, they're going to think you're just an inexperienced driver, which means you need more help. You need more drive time behind the wheel. Now, roll, on the other hand, and you can tell by the picture here, the yellow arrow's pointing down. It could point to the left or to the right. It has to do with what you're doing with the steering wheel, how much you're braking into the turn, and as I said earlier, maybe the slope of the pavement. But more than anything, it's probably what you're doing behind the wheel of the car. So in your notes, please write down, speed is related to speed, road design, and sometimes weather. Okay, so when you're going around a corner in the winter, because you don't get adhesion, traction to the roadway, one side's going to lift up a little bit higher than normal when there's a slippery surface. And that's going to create a little bit of a problem. If your body, as I said earlier, is moving, there's a good sense that roll is taking place in the car, that the car is actually rolling. So if you feel that you're leaning and you're holding onto the steering wheel, everybody else in the car is feeling it a little bit more than you are. Now, yaw, what I want you to write down, is more related to speed, and probably this is in order. Speed, road design, weather. In your notes, yaw is usually an indicator of lack of traction. So you're only going to spin out a car. When you spin out a car, it's probably yaw related. It's one side of the car is lifting up, as you can see by the arrow that's pointing up. So it's the back right corner. The left front corner is trying to grip the road, and you're spinning on an axis. So if you were to draw a line, a diagonal line, okay, between the back right tire and the front left tire, and go halfway into the vehicle, basically probably between the front and back seat, right where the middle of your car is, you're spinning on that axis. Your car is spinning out in the back because of the speed and road design. So this is what happens to your vehicle when you're driving too fast and you're not slowing down for your turn. So I want you to draw this diagram. I want you to realize we've got three things going on in this picture. We've got a very sharp turn to the left. We know where the road is bending. So the green line is where you want to go. You want to stay in the center of your lane. Now the red line is science. Inertia is a mathematical equation. A vehicle in motion stays in motion unless there's some type of input to slow the vehicle down, and that's your brake pedal. So if you keep speeding up and you don't hit the brake pedal or turn the steering wheel, you are going right straight ahead where that red arrow is. But when you input a little bit of brake or a little bit of steering, you split between what science is basically telling your car to do with what you're trying to make the car to do with the green line. So actually the car is going to go where the blue line is. So you're not staying in your lane, but you're also not going straight ahead. You're cutting that corner. So what I want you to also write in your notes or to draw in this picture here is that you must always brake to the middle portion of your turn. You must input some type of brake pressure through the middle of the turn. So where the word says apex, your brake is being applied till the back of your vehicle has reached that middle portion. Then you can let go of the brake pedal. Then you could probably input some acceleration, but not till that time. The other thing that you need to remember is that at any given moment, your tire could blow out if you're making a turn too quickly. Notice where the arrows are forcing out. If you look at the picture, the graph over there on the left, okay, air is leaking out between the rim and the rubber of your tire. So the rim is red, your tire is black, air is being forced out in that little tiny area. When they say excessive tire flexion increases tire heat, is that it's already hot. It was like the high 70s, 80s today. So the warmer the outside temperature is, and the faster you drive, the warmer your tire is. And the rubber is going to stop pulling away from the rim, and that's going to create loss of tire pressure and air. That's going to make turning more difficult. So remember, the faster you go around corners in warmer weather, the more wear and tear you're putting on your tires. So let's talk about target. And when you're driving, and this is kind of basic stuff here when it comes to driving, this might have been something that your parents, I'm going to see if I can make this a little bit smaller. Hold on here. I'm going to see if I can get out of this just a little. Well, there we go. So I'm still here. I'll put it over in the corner so you can see me. All right. So target is what you're basically aiming for. So if you take a look at a steering wheel where 12 o'clock is, that is where you're aiming for your target. Actually, that's probably a little bit too small. I wish I could make myself a little bit bigger. Anyways, all right. Now your target path is that green area. So the left side of the green path is your left tire. The right side of that target path is your right tire. So wherever you're aiming your steering wheel towards, your target is where your car is traveling. Now, it has been said in, over many, many years of learning to drive is just look to the front part of your car. Used to be that line up the hood ornament or something on a windshield wiper off to the right side of the road. It may work, but you're not really seeing what's happening way down the road. You should be looking as far as your eyes will allow you to see to pick up where you want to be traveling. You're going to be picking up a lot more information, and you're not going to really be sacrificing position on the roadway. So I want you to write down target and target path. So as we said before, you can take a look at the picture. You can see the piece of black tape is lined up with a circle. That is what you're aiming for, and that's where your car is going to be driving. So we know that we're on target. Now here, just the opposite. That piece of black tape is really pointed towards the mailbox. It's no longer pointing towards the circle. So you're actually going to go into oncoming traffic at that point, not where you want to be driving. And it only takes a moment to lose your position on the road. So this may be why you're having a problem driving with your parents, where you're too close on one side and then you're way over on the other side. You're not staying. You've got to focus further down the road and try to find a target that you want to be driving towards. So here the car is back on target. Vision leads to the car. If you look where you want the car to go, you're going to probably be going straight on for that target. So I want you to write down, what does tracking or aiming for that target provide you? It helps you to know how to look, where to look, and what to look for. So the distance where that target is, the further down that target is, it's really helping you to be more aware of your driving environment. And we're going to be talking more about vision a little bit later tonight. Now, careful, use your target driving is great for driving straight, even for bends in the road. Your target's going to be moving from side to side. But in your notes, lane change is a little bit different. Be careful when making a lane change. Where you look is where you'll go. We want to move over to the right lane because we want to turn at the traffic light. We know that nobody's in the left lane where we're traveling. There is a truck in front of us. We don't know what's behind us or to the side of us. But if you turn your head to look in your mirrors or to look over your shoulder to see if there's anybody in your blind spot, there's a good chance that you're going to start to drift. So in your notes, when making a lane change, make sure that you have a distance from anything that's in front of you. Keep your car targeting in your lane. Keep your hands still while you make a check in your mirrors and over your shoulder, and you will not drift prematurely. I will tell you probably 70% of the students that I take out on our lane change lesson, the first one we do, by the time they've looked in all their mirrors and over their shoulder, we are inches, if not on the dotted line. We have moved a foot to 2 feet closer to the middle of the road when we should have stayed centered in our lane while we're processing the information that we see in our mirrors. We have two terms that I want you to be somewhat familiar with. Okay, LOS, POT. LOS stands for line of sight, POT, path of travel. These are common terms in the driver's ed field over the last, I've been doing this for 35 years and they've been around that long. I like what they're trying to say here, but I think at times we get lost in the definition or the acronyms here, and we forget about what we're really trying to solve here. What I want you to write down, line of sight, path of travel, is to alleviate hazards and problems on the roadway. The biggest concern for all new drivers really isn't learning how to park. It's really learning how to move and interact with other cars. That is where you're going to have most of your problems. Because probably 95 to 97% of your driving is moving forward. It's moving with other vehicles. You're only going to spend 2% of your driving backing out of a driveway or parking, but we spend a lot of times in driver's ed trying to make you park well, angle parking, parallel parking, lane changes. Lane changes is what's going to be complicated. So parking. But we have to have better vision. We have to have better position on the roadway so we don't interfere with other traffic, and that we don't create a problem, and that we solve problems on the road. So LOS stands for line of sight, POT, path of travel. So just make sure you write that down. Do you have a basic understanding of that? So let's get in a little bit deeper. Okay, what would be line of sight problems? Weather. Anytime you've got anything on your windshield, rain, snow. Now, fog isn't on your windshield, but it is a vision problem. Curves, hills, intersections. I've driven with a few of you already. You know when we come to a stop sign, we want to stop at the line. But if you can't see, you need to inch forward, and usually inching in the direction you want to turn next, because you're trying to increase your line of sight. The other thing with line of sight, let me move out of here for a second. You're driving, and I'm going to turn my head. I'm looking left. I'm looking right. I can't see anything. What I want you to write down in your notes, if you don't feel comfortable moving forward any further because you're afraid your car is going to move out into the road and interfere with traffic, I want you to write this down. To increase your line of sight, your line of sight is basically 180 degrees. Okay, this is from here. Now, if you incorporate this in your drive, lean forward, you're going to basically add 15 to 20 feet on either side of what you can see. It's amazing when you feel you can't go any further by moving your body forward and looking, you've just increased a little bit more down the road that you're going to be able to see. Don't sit way back. The further back you are, it's going to be harder to see. So move forward when you're making your checks. Buildings, bridges, fences, I think that all makes sense. Same thing with trees, bushes, signs. And really, this is the worst time for blind areas at stop signs, because our trees are in full bloom of foliage. So when we have winter and the leaves have dropped, your line of sight's going to be better because you're going to see through bushes and trees a lot easier. Other things that could cause problems, parked vehicles, trucks, buses, any slow-moving vehicle right beside you, you're going to have to look through their window to see things, and vehicles entering the roadway. Other path of travel problems. So now we're on path of travel, not line of sight. So what is happening on the roadway? What's causing position problems? Where the red light is, where the stop line is, where the yield sign is. Intersections, narrow lanes, surface conditions, bumpy roads, and rough roads. Rain, ice, snow, water, loose gravel, sand, leaves, oil. So we're talking about what is going to affect where we're stopping and where we're traveling. Other causes of problems, slow-moving, turning, parked vehicles. Getting closer than 4 seconds behind somebody is going to give you less time to deal with what is happening. A lot of roadkill lately, so even dead animals on the road. Pedestrians that are either entering in your path or just leaving your path of travel will create a different lane position. Now, I want you to write out this diagram, okay? So these are your locations around your vehicle. we know that we have a front and a back of a vehicle, but there are also 3 quadrants in each section. So in the front, you've got to think about right front, left front, rear, left rear, and right rear. Now, I'm going to include 2 other areas, both to the front and back. So what I want you to write down in your notes, I want you to write down far left front, far left, far left front, far right front. So the times that you would take your vehicle and go way past the left front area into the far left front area would be that something is blocking your lane, like a dump truck, like a delivery vehicle, like a pack of bicycles. You just can't stay in your lane close to the yellow line. You've got to go over. So far left and far right are when you're going over either the yellow line or the white line. Now, please note this for your midterm and for when you're driving with me. I am going to ask you at times to go far left and far right. I am a firm believer of giving more distance to where there's a problem. So whether it be a pedestrian, a bike to the right, whether it be an oncoming vehicle that is too close to the yellow line, we're changing constantly our position in our lane. Do not think for a minute that you always have to stay within your yellow line and white line. That is a falsehood. The only reason why we have lines is to help separate traffic that is moving in opposite directions or in the same direction. So when there aren't other cars around, but there are situations like a pothole, a piece of lumber that came off a truck, you're not going to stay in your lane. You're going to go way over the yellow line. You're going to go way over the white line. But of course, you're going to have to manage these positions with other moving vehicles. But don't get so tight and rigid in your driving that you don't use your head and common sense about positioning your car. And one of the hardest things, and we're going to talk about this probably in the next 10, 15 minutes, is that I'm in my seat right now. I have to have a basic feeling of how far to the right, okay, where my vehicle is located. I have to have some sense of depth perception and have an idea of where my body is in relationship to the car and the lines and other cars. Because if you don't have good spatial distancing measurements going on in your head, it's going to be tough. You're going to bump into things. You just plain will. Curbs, backwards, you're going to bump into cars behind you because you don't know how far back your car is. Although now we have backup cameras, so that's going to be a little bit helpful. But it's really, really hard with these different quadrants of managing them. And you got to also remember, the faster you go, the quicker your assessment of where your vehicle is within these areas. Okay? So, what I want you to do, and I said I'm going to ask you questions. I want you to look at this picture really, really closely. And in the comments on YouTube, I want you to write down how many people you see outside walking around. So look way down the road, look all the way around, and I want you to write down how many people that you see. And I'm not going to speak for a few moments until I see some of the guesses that people put up. Plus, it's going to give me some idea of who's still watching. So count the number of people. Okay, people should be answering how many people you see walking outside around the vehicles. Put it in the comments on YouTube. Okay, 4 or 5. Cole, pretty good. Okay, all good guesses, but and I know the picture is very, very small, but I think Joseph is actually the closest. There are actually 7. There are 7 people that are walking around on the outside. So I'm going to try to explain. We're going to go just look beyond the red vehicle up at the yellow sign. There's a person to the right. So there's one. Then if you look up where there's an orange cone just to the left of a delivery truck, there are 2 people there. So there's 3. Then there's one on the double yellow line. There's 4. Then if you look over to the cone to the far left, there is 5. She's in green. Okay, just to the left of the cones, there's 5. The person, now go to the left of the picture, there's a person walking. There's 6. And if you take a look at the door that's open, there's a person grabbing onto the ladder. That's the one that most people don't see. So there's actually 7 people. Now, the reason why I bring this up is that the 2 to the left are the closest to us. And I think this is a reason why, if you look at the oncoming vehicle, he's getting close to the yellow line because he sees the door open. So he's making his position change right now. The problem is where we're driving, we've got the red car that's coming up. So we can't get too close to the white line because there could be somebody in the red car that we just don't see right now. So this is the way that you have to drive. This is what's separating good drivers from great drivers, is those that can take a look at all the different nuances of where everybody is and how they're moving and how that's going to affect other cars that are on the roadway. I know you're probably thinking, I really don't have to worry about those people way up there on the crosswalk. You're probably right. They're probably going to be gone by the time you get there. But who knows? Maybe they're going to be walking towards their vehicle. And then that would create a problem. So when we were talking about lane positions, this is basically what you're going to be doing for tracking. So this is what we were saying. So the car to the left in the middle of the lane is called the center position. This was kind of just like what we had on the last picture. When you're hugging the yellow line, that is left of center. When you're hugging the white line, it's right of center. Over the white line, that's far right. And over the yellow line, mostly, that's far left. So these are the 5 positions when you're driving with me that I'm going to want you to be in. All right? So that's just a basic overview of vehicle balance and positioning. Because when you do go out with me your first time, and some of you have already done this, you know I take you on some windy roads. We do different types of turns to see how you handle the speed of your turns and position. So this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking at how you maneuver the vehicle within your lane with good speed control and braking, how you're braking. So that's that. Now, this is from responsible driving. This is where you had your homework. So we're going to go over probably, I think this is chapter 6. I'm getting the ones confused because the other one was with options and choices, and I just wanted you to read that. We're not going to really cover it that well in class, so make sure that you do the one on options and choices. But I'm more concerned right now with understanding some principles of how to use your eyes more effectively. So there are 5 definitions that we're going to go over. visual acuity, distance vision, depth perception, central vision, and peripheral vision. Um, Write down only the ones that I tell you that are real important. And this first one is real important. This is why I told you last week when you go for your driver's test, they're not going to give you a license if you can't see. And that comes down to visual acuity, how well you can see objects, whether they're sharp and clear. So write that down. Visual acuity basically just means how well you can see things in your driving path clearly and sharp. The example that I gave you at the bottom here is that if you're going 30 miles per hour with good vision, 20/20 is what you need. That's good vision. You can read a 6-inch street sign from a distance of about 225 feet or 4 or 5 seconds. But if your vision is less than normal, it's not horrible, but it's not ideal. You need 20/40 vision, which means that you've got to be half the distance, 90 feet to 135 feet, or 2 to 3 seconds away to read that same sign. So better vision allows you to make better sound judgment over a longer period of time. When you make quick judgments, they're going to probably be very unreliable. Distance vision, just as I said, the bottom bullet here, conditions of your eyeglasses in your windshield could cut down on distance vision. But as I was saying, poor distance vision with excessive speed increases the risk of making unreliable judgments with potentially disastrous results. So when you can't see well up ahead with bad visual acuity, that's a recipe for disaster. You're gonna look like an inexperienced driver. You're not gonna handle things well. Now, depth perception, I want you to write down. This is really important with following other cars, passing, how you use your side mirrors, how you pull out in front of traffic at a stop sign. Can you judge how far away they really are? And your stopping distance. This is why a lot of people, even though they're getting used to the brake, they're going way beyond their stop line. Now, central vision is what you focus on, is what you see. Let me get out of here for a second. So we talked about lining up your target with 12 o'clock on a steering wheel. So most of your focus is going to be straight ahead. You're going to be so in tune to what you're looking at with the yellow and white line that you may be, unaware of what's happening to the side. So you've got to open up your field of vision when you drive to really pick up the true sense of what's happening. Now, I like giving this little exercise to people. So what I want you to do, same thing like I had you do just a moment ago of putting down how many people. I want you to write down everything that you see in this picture. Right? I'm going to show you a picture. I'm going to leave it on the computer here for about 3 to 4 seconds. Then write down what you see. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, write down what you saw. I'm going to put some music on, and I'm going to give you just a few moments just to write down at least a few things. More than one. Write down at least 2 or 3 things that you saw. Okay, all good answers. All good answers, because everything that you wrote down was in the picture. Everything that you wrote down was in the picture. So you picked up some good information. But the main picture was of a baby. That whole drawing was a baby with all that other stuff that you're writing down just to take your eyes off the baby. Let me show you the picture again. Okay, look real close. Look real close. That is a picture of a baby. If you look at the tree, okay, there's the feet way over on the right, halfway up. There's the baby's feet, then the knees, then the belly's going up over the water. The hands go up into the top of the branches, the nose and the mouth. The forehead is over on the left. You can see the eye being formed by the branch. So they drew a picture of a baby, and then they put everything else to take your attention away from the picture of the baby. There are going to be times when you're driving and you think that you see the road and that you've got it all figured out. You know exactly what is happening, but guess what? You're missing something. There is going to be something that takes you totally by surprise. Now, please write this down. Inattention blindness. Okay, now this is a lengthy paragraph. I do not want you to write down the whole paragraph. I only want you to write down the first sentence. Inattention blindness is the failure by a person to notice something, so you don't have to put stimulus, to notice something that is in plain sight. That baby was there. If I go back to that picture, and if I was to ask another group of people, find the baby in the picture, most of you would probably find it in a little bit of time. But because I didn't tell you, you weren't looking for it. The yellow line and the white line are always there. Signs are tucked away and you may miss them because you have to actively be looking for them. Traffic lights you usually don't miss if you're paying attention to the road because you got two of them, one overhanging the intersection, one off to the side. So it goes on in the definition. This usually happens because humans are overloaded with inputs. It's impossible to pay attention to every single input that is presented. A person's attention cannot be focused on everything. Therefore, everyone experiences inattentional blindness. Now, I'm going to show you a study. I got a couple of video clips that I want to show you how it works. Okay? Watch the people that are filling out this survey. Watch this.
The difference between these two men seems obvious. Their faces are different, their hair is different, even their shirts are a different color. And yet an experiment by psychologists Dan Simons and Chris Chabris at Harvard reveals that our brains actually process very little of what comes in through the eyes.
In this experiment, a subject comes up to a counter and a first experimenter hands them a consent form. As soon as they finish signing the consent form, they hand it back to the first experimenter, who then takes the consent form, ducks down behind the counter to put it away, and a different experimenter then stands up and hands the subject a packet of information and sends them into a hallway where we ask them questions about it.
This wonderful experiment uncovers an aspect of the brain's attention system known as change blindness.
Change blindness is the idea that we often miss large changes to our visual world from one view to the next. We're often not able to see large changes that would appear to be perfectly obvious to somebody who knows they're going to happen.
And incredibly, in 75% of cases, the subjects don't notice a thing.
The lady who took me up here, she opened the door for me and told me to walk over to the desk.
This form.
All right. I think there was a sign that said experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And a man there gave me a form to sign.
Mm-hmm.
There was the guy standing under a big sign that said experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And to my left, there was like a pot with some dirt in it and some plastic containers. Is it the fifth?
Yeah, this one. Let me just...
Oh, I filled out a form.
Okay.
Right.
This form.
How long would it be about before it...
And I asked him how long it would take, and he said about 10, 15 minutes or so.
I guess I have the time to do that.
Did you notice anything unusual at all after you signed the consent form?
I just signed it, and I didn't even pay attention to anything that was written on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
After you handed it back to him, did you notice anything unusual happen at all?
If you could just take this into the next
No,
room.
no, I probably wasn't even looking that direction. I probably
Okay.
turned and looked towards the clear door. I saw some people there.
Okay.
Then I turned back and looked at him for a second.
Okay. Did you notice anything unusual at all after you signed the consent form?
No. This is only going to take 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll be real short.
Okay.
The person who stood up was actually a different person.
Okay.
I gather you didn't notice that that was different? A different person actually stood up and handed you this form and sent you out toward me. I gather from your action you didn't notice that?
No.
Okay. Don't feel bad about that. Actually, most of the time, we find about 75% of people don't notice.
You serious?
Yeah. The person who stood up with the packet was actually a different person
Wow.
than the first person.
That is incredible.
So I gather you didn't see it then.
I didn't catch that, no.
Okay. What's really interesting is that some people notice these changes and other people don't notice these changes.
Okay, if you could just take this.
And we really don't yet have a good idea
Take that and go into
what separates those people who don't from those people who just happened to be focusing on a feature that changed. They just happened to be paying attention to the color of the person's shirt.
Take this into the next room.
And the people who failed to notice it just happened to be paying attention to something.
So you're probably thinking after watching this, how could they not know that a different person stood up? They look different, different shirts and everything, but these things happen. So now you know what I'm looking for. Now, change blindness and inattention blindness are very closely related. So we're going to talk about change blindness, where something is there and then it's not there, or something's not there and now something else is there. So I'm going to show you a video. I want you to tell me how many things that you see change, okay? How many things are different? You ready? Let's see what you can pick up.
Watch this next sequence carefully. At the end, I'll ask you a question about what you've seen.
Hi, I'm Magic Singh, and today we're in Portobello Road, and I'm going to show you guys a classic in magic, using matches. And today to help me out is Mark. Mark, tell you what, place your hand up for me nice and flat. Now, I promise this won't hurt, all right? So here's the idea. Let's just light this up, and if you close onto that nice and tight, here we go. Watch this.
Keep watching.
Don't know if you felt that or not. I'll tell you what, have a look inside. Open it up. See how the match is actually returned into the book, and it's still burnt. Okay, you're not impressed. All right, it was my first trick ever. But here's the idea. Just place that back in your hand, close it tight, and turn it face down again if you can. Now we're going to use one more thing, and we're going to use a magician's best friend, playing cards. Now the idea is really simple. You're going to choose one, so take anyone you like. Perfect. Have a look for yourself, and do me a favor, show the camera as well if you can. Brilliant. And you know what? Place it back face up on the deck. Now, it doesn't matter if I see what the card is, because we're going to do something completely different. Just watch this. Here we go. I'll do it slowly. Watch the king. I don't know if you felt that or not. Tell you what, have a look inside. Open it up.
Oh,
Check it out.
it's the King of Diamonds. It's my card.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Very much.
Did you watch the trick closely? This is a famous illusion called inattention blindness. This illusion is not about the magic. While watching the routine, you may or may not have noticed the changes taking place. The question is, how many changes did you see? Was there 1? Were there 3? Or were there 5?
Okay, what I want you to do is write down, did you see 1 change, 3 changes, or 5 changes? I'm not going to ask you what they were, just the number. So write it down in your comment, and we'll see how many of you get this right. So just put down a number, and then I'll show you the rest of the video, what basically changed.
The answer is there were 3 changes. The first change was the red hanky to a green one. The second was his shirt swapping to a t-shirt. The last was his assistant becoming a completely different person. How many did you see?
So why is it that you didn't see these big changes? And the reason is that the brain receives so much information on its eyes that you can't see everything simultaneously. So instead it picks and chooses according to what it thinks is important. If you change something that it doesn't think is important, you just literally don't see it.
Okay, and to put this back into perspective, I'm going to show you one last video clip that I have about this, and it kind of translates into why this is so important for driving. So this is what I want you to take away from inattention blindness and change blindness, because it puts you at a disadvantage if you are distracted. And we're going to have a whole class on distracted driving, but this should kind of really bring home why you should be focused 100% on your driving at all times. The minute you start zoning out and not focusing on looking at the road and finding all these things, you're going to be at a major disadvantage.
You are about to take part in a quick experiment. Take a look at this. Okay, now, did you happen to notice anything odd? Watch again. See any changes? Don't worry if you didn't see that it's 2 different men. It means your brain is doing exactly what it should be. It's focusing on the meaning of the scene rather than on the irrelevant details. Imagine how much energy and brain mass it would take for us to remember every single person, place, or thing we encountered. The things that matter, a conversation with a coworker, your child's first step, would be drowned by a deluge of information. So when there are minor changes to the world around us, we often don't pick up on them. There are 2 similar phenomena at work.
Inattentional blindness is the failure to notice something that's fully obvious right there in front of you when your attention is engaged on something or someone else. Change blindness is a failure to notice a difference between what's there right now and what was there a moment ago.
Scientists such as Daniel Simons from the University of Illinois have spent years devising experiments testing just how perceptive and unperceptive humans actually are.
So we feel like we're aware of everything, that we're taking in all of the details, and that if something important happens, we'll automatically notice it. It'll capture our attention. The reality is that we often don't notice unexpected things because we're aware of far less of our world than we think we are.
So how much or how little are we actually aware of? We decided to recreate one of Simon's most famous experiments to see for ourselves. Here's the setup. Our senior series producer, Vin, poses as a lost pedestrian and asks a passerby for directions.
Excuse me? I'm looking for the skyline.
Then, we break the 2 up, walking through them holding a large sheet of wood. Now watch as I replace Vin. You might think people would notice the switch, but almost half the time, they didn't. Of course, that means more than half the time they did. We only tried the experiment 9 times, and by no means was it good science, but we were surprised 4 people didn't notice the switch. In Simon's original experiment, 7 out of 15 people didn't either. So what determines whether or not you can figure out the switch?
When you look at another person, you encode what's relevant for what you're doing right then, in that case, giving directions, and you don't pay attention to the details that are irrelevant, say what color their shirt is or exactly how tall they are. As long as you are able to make sense of the meaning of the scene and roughly the main categories of that person, say their height, their age, what race they are, what sex they are, as long as those important things don't change, the meaning of the scene really hasn't changed and you're not going to notice that anything's different.
Scientists have documented inattentional and change blindness since the 1970s, and while they allow you to focus your attention, this failure to see every detail can prove costly. Drivers often cause accidents because they overlook quick changes to their environments, such as pedestrians or cyclists. Faulty memories can wreak havoc during eyewitness testimony.
The goal of vision isn't to build a photograph or a complete model of the world in your mind. The goal of vision is to make sense of the meaning of the world around you. Being aware of our limitations can help us adapt and compensate for them, allowing us to do things that prevent the really negative consequences that can happen due to failures of awareness.
For example, Simons thinks that people might be willing to put away their cell phone when driving if they just understood the limits to their attention. Juries might realize that eyewitness testimony is far from ideal. And the next time you and a friend are fighting about the details of a past event, it's likely you're both wrong. Now that's something to remember.
So what I want you to write down in your notes is that a lot of times your driving will only be as good as your vision. Okay, think about that. Your driving will only be as good as your vision. So if you can't see the road or see what you have to do, how you're going to be able to do it, or how you're going to be able to do it well. So we still got a little bit ways to go for tonight, but tomorrow's lessons will be what are the signs, what are the lights, what are the pavement markings that are going to help me if I pick them up early. How am I going to be a better driver by filtering in and processing that information? Too many times when we learn to drive, especially at the beginning, it's like, don't crash the car, keep it between the yellow line and the white line, and we'll go from there. It's just stopping and going, stopping and going, stopping, making a turn, going, then making another turn. It's more than that, because it's going to catch up with you when you're in a driving environment where there's too much information and you can't position your car on the roadway or the speed or the braking, and you're going to have a major problem. But if you were to pick up these problems earlier, you're probably going to be a better driver. These are some other videos that I've used over the years. I only showed you a couple of them. We saw that one. We missed this one. I don't know what I did with it, but that's, if I can find it, I'll try to input it back into the presentation. Okay, peripheral vision, I want you to write down. And that's basically what we see at 180 degrees. You really have to open up your vision to this area. Anytime that you're just using your focal vision, which is right in front of you, your visual acuity, you're going to have a lot of change blindness, a lot. So the only thing that we get from peripheral vision is it helps us detect color and movement. So I want you to write that down. So peripheral vision is from where our arms are stretched out to the front. So from here to here is 180 degrees. I'm going to move my hands in a little bit. So when I'm moving my fingers like this, I can still see my fingers over here. I can see them over here. Okay, that's 180 degrees. But the only thing that we can see is we can see movement, but we can't see detail. So if someone came up to you and held up 3 fingers, you go, I see something moving, it's fingers, but I can't tell how many. It's not until you turn your head that you get that detail, that acuity. So peripheral vision gives us movement and it gives us color. We can see a color of something, so we know it's important, so we look at it. Other aspects of vision: color vision, night vision, glare vision, recovery. Only a few of these I want you to write down. Color vision is important. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about the colors of signs. So you must be able to pick up your signs quickly. You may not see the image or the detail of the message, but you know it's an orange sign. You know it's a blue sign. You know it's a brown sign. And if you know what that meaning is for that group of color, then you'll be able to process things a little bit quicker. So traffic signs, signals, pavement markings, got to be able to pick them up. Color vision helps with turn signals, hazard lights, backup lights, brake lights. You have to know the color of all these lights and what they mean, where they're located. And people often ask, what happens when someone's colorblind? Can they still drive? Yes, they can. But they have to know the position of all these lights on a car. Brake lights, backup lights, turn signals. When it comes to traffic lights, they know from top to bottom what the colors are. They don't know what color it is, but they know it's on because it's brighter than the other ones. So that's how you compensate. Night vision, I want you to write down. Part of your 40 hours of driving will be with a parent at night. This is a perfect time. Great night. After driver's ed tonight, tell your parents, let's go for an ice cream. Get some drive time in. Kind of use what we're talking about. Use your eyes a little bit more effective at night. Driving at night, everything is going to be less with a peripheral vision, less with off to the sides, and more towards your focal vision to the front. As you get older, your eyes don't filter light as well. You get blinded by headlights at night a little bit longer. And you just can't see things as well as you do during the daytime. And in your notes, write this down. More animals are hit at night than during the day. It's because you don't see them until they're illuminated by your headlights. And your headlights don't go 180 degrees. You're lucky if they go like 110. So by the time an animal drifts into your lane with your headlights illuminating where the animal is, the light blinds them, it freezes them, they stay stationary, and you can't move the vehicle or your speed's too fast, and you hit the animal. You'll see more dead animals off on the right near the white edge line than towards the center. Is because they wander in and then they stop. Glare vision, this is another night problem. You can't process the rapid increase of light at night. And by the way, you should do things like wear sunglasses, use your visor on your vehicle to help any type of glare that you're getting. In the summer, we're getting the reflection off water. In the wintertime, we're getting a glare off the snow. And it fatigues your eyes. The longer you drive, any type of glare, sun glare, is going to fatigue your eyes. And I'm a firm believer of always having sunglasses with you. I had a pair in the driver's ed vehicle, and I can't find them. I can't find the pair that I would give to students that would forget to wear their glasses. So I'm going to have to get an extra pair of cheap ones for people to wear. But please bring them when you drive. So let's talk a little bit about communication. I'm a firm believer that do everything that you can do in your power for other people to see you and to hear you. Driving is very much all five senses. Okay, you feel the road. You feel when you lose control of your vehicle. You can smell that there's smoke coming from underneath the hood, that something's not right. You can hear sirens coming. You don't know where the ambulance is, but you know it's probably coming. Okay, and sight. So driving, anytime that you're taking any of your senses away, you're diminishing how effective of a driver that you are. So I want you to write down a few things here. The reason why we want to communicate to other people is because we want to be courteous. We want to be cooperative with other people on the roadway. We want the same from other people. We want them to use their turn signals. We want them to give the right of way. We want them to wave us on when they don't want to go and they want us to go. That's just being a responsible, courteous driver. And the other thing, too, is that I find people that communicate well have less anxiety and stress. People that are very stressed are the same people, like you cut somebody off and they're really upset. These are the same people that don't use their signals. These are the people that don't help out with the communication thing. So they don't do it, but they're upset when people do it to them. And it really does lower the risk of being involved in a crash. When people know what other people are doing, we can handle mistakes. We can handle what to do in a bad situation. Untimely or non-communications. This is a sign that a person is very competitive, aggressive, uncooperative. This is the road rage, and we're going to have a whole section on road rage. It decreases the amount of time one needs to see and understand actions. So it causes that stress and anxiety. And this is the part I like. It requires a reaction rather than a response. I'd much rather respond to something than to react. I'd rather respond to somebody that puts their directional on than someone that's cutting out in front of me and it's like, oh, okay, so you wanted to turn right. Okay, fine, great. So it's better to respond to people than to react to people. And as we said before, it increases risk to you and others on the roadway. I do want you to write this down. This is really, I want you to incorporate all of these in your driving. Please, please, please. I think your parents may look at you like, oh my goodness, what are you doing that for? Well, this is what you're learning. We're trying to make you the best possible driver. So let's go one by one. The best way we communicate, headlights. I always have headlights on during the day. Just so when people look in their rearview mirror, they go, oh, there's a car behind me. I want them to see me just a little bit sooner. They would probably see me without a headlight on, but they see me a lot sooner with it on. Signal lights, always at least 5 seconds before you need them. That translates to about 100 feet, around 30 miles per hour. 500 feet, which would be, fifth of a mile on a highway. Give people time to process that you're turning right or turning left. But just don't put them on for like 20 seconds. That's way too long. Brake lights, apply early and know the speed of the vehicles that are behind you and know your speed where you need to stop. I will say with some of you that I have driven with here, that's one thing I want you to incorporate in your driving. When you see a stop sign or see a traffic light, go to the brake a little bit earlier. Now, I'm not talking about a lot of brake, but at least a little bit, or at least cover the brake. You don't want to get right upon where you need to stop and then apply the brake. Reverse lights. We know that they're white. We know that people are backing. But if you've got reverse lights on and you're backing, maybe it would be a good idea to also include your signal. Because it's not only telling people that you're backing up, but it's telling them which direction the back of the vehicle is going. It's going to the right or going to the left. And I will tell you emphatically that I can go through an entire driver's ed class and no one, and I mean no one, uses the horn. Why not? The horn is a tool to be seen. The first response that somebody's going to give when they hear a horn is to brake. Let me get out of here for a second. You're not trying to do this to anger people. I'm not talking a real loud horn. Hey, I got a horn right here. Let me play this one. This is a horn. Well, that's like a hockey horn. You're only using the horn for people. You want people to turn their head and to go to their brake pedal. I don't want a real, loud, long horn. That's a horn that is out of anger, out of disgust. Even though you may be feeling that, you just don't want to portray that out to other people, especially the driver's ed car. We don't want people to think that we're mean and inconsiderate. So please, a couple taps on the horn just to let people know that we're around. I think that would be helpful. Hand signals. You got to realize that if your directionals aren't working, hand signals are going to have to be incorporated in your driving. Maybe on a driving test, they'll tell you, roll down your window and use your hand signals for the next 5-10 minutes. So you should be familiar with hand signals so we know this is a right, this is a left, and this is slow and stop. So it's not only good that you know how to use them if your directionals aren't working, but it's also understanding what bicycles are communicating to you as you go closer to a bicyclist. Lane position will tell people things. We're going to talk more about lane position when we come to turning. And I don't know if we're going to have enough time tonight to get into turns. We may have to add that to the section on parking, which will be in the beginning of next week, because I do want to get into sign signals and pavement markings tomorrow, because it is probably one of the most important classes that we have. It really lays down the rules of the road for us. Lastly, speed, approaching a turn, hill, or curve. That is communicating to people what you're doing, because you're not going to be making a sharp 90-degree turn if you're going 30 miles per hour. So your speed actually is communicating to people what you're doing. These are common errors that we find from drivers when it comes to signals. They forget to use them, which isn't helpful at all. They put them on too late, so people can't react to it. Or so they're only reacting, they're not responding to them. Wrong information, and going in the wrong direction. So you're saying you go right, but you turn left. So my philosophy, and I want you to write this down, it's better to have your signals on and not need them than to need them and not have them on. You will only be penalized if you're giving out wrong information. So if your lane can only go right, what's the big deal that you put your signal on? Okay, so you can only go right. I got my right signal on. Good, fine. Okay, you probably didn't need it, but it's better. But if you have a choice to go straight or turn right, you better have it on, because they're thinking, oh, he's turning right, but then you choose to go straight. You're giving out that wrong information. Huh. I don't know what this slide was supposed to be. I don't know that I had a blank slide here. But that's communication and vision. Like I said, turning is a little bit more lengthy. I'm going to probably need about, probably about a half hour to really get into it pretty good. And we just don't have that tonight. I will tell you, for your homework, I am going to put on the Facebook page a worksheet that you're going to have to do prior to, I'll try to get it on tomorrow. It deals with signs. I want to know what your basic information of what you know about signs. We're going to do that. And I'll also put a worksheet on about sign signals and pavement markings, dealing with the chapter 3 that you're supposed to read. So make sure that you read chapter 3 and do the short questions that they have. And that will be for tomorrow. So please, please be here tomorrow. It is, like I said, probably the meat and potatoes of driver's ed. Really got to put in some real foundation under of what we're supposed to do out here on the roadway. I will guarantee that I will tell you things that you never thought of and did not know tomorrow. Just things that you just never thought about, that never knew that. It will change the way that you will approach traffic lights, signs and signals, and pavement markings. I'll guarantee it. And you will be able to share this with your parents, and they will know that you are learning something and you're getting good information, and you're going to be more knowledgeable than they are, and they've been driving for all these years. So we'll see you tomorrow. That's it for tonight. I think that's great. And by the way, if any of you are watching this at a lake house, okay, it's pretty hot. I've got some lights on. You know, this room is pretty hot. Okay, to make me feel a little bit better, like I'm having a vacation. So if you're near a lake house or near an ocean right now, take a picture, tomorrow, of where you are, so I can kind of enjoy what you're enjoying, kind of, through your picture. I thought that was, because I've driven with a few of you, and I know that you're at lake houses. So have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow at 8 o'clock. And like I said, I'll have a better idea of what Friday, Saturday will look like for drive times for some of you. So for those of you that haven't driven yet, I'm going to give you top priority over those that have. And we'll get everybody going soon. And if you haven't paid, remember, please try to bring a check when you do come to drive. So we'll see you tomorrow, 8 o'clock. Have a good night. Bye.